Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. This episode of the Profit Answer Man podcast is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. If you've discovered us via the network, then I hope you enjoy today's show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss our episodes. How do you get referrals? Do you have a system in place to ensure it happens and take the time to do what needs to be done? It's a lot easier than you think, and that's what our guest is going to share today. Stacey Randall is the multiple award-winning author of Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, host of the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast, and a national speaker. She has the privilege of helping well-known corporations and franchises, but her focus is on the small business owner and solopreneur. She's been featured in national publications like Entrepreneur Magazine, Investors Business Daily, Forbes, CEO World, Fox News, and more. Let's meet Stacey. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Stacey Brown Randall. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you, Rocky, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yes. So I help business owners generate referrals naturally, without manipulation, without incentivizing, and without even having to ask. So as you can imagine, I get to be a contrarian to what most people teach when it comes to referrals, which makes the work that I do a lot of fun. I've been doing this for almost a decade. I always like to say that I have this portfolio career of kind of how I landed where I landed to teach people how to generate referrals in a very different way, but a very successful way as well. And so I'm a member of the Business Failure Club. I learned a lot of lessons when you have a business that fails and you actually have to take down the shingle and then go back to corporate America. That is a very humbling lesson. It's hard one to learn. But from that, I learned a lot of things about how to make this business successful. So I'm grateful for that business failure. But, prior to that, just a portfolio of career, sales, marketing, HR background, even worked for a magazine for a period of time. So I think all those things led me to be prepared to do exactly what I do today, which is pretty awesome how that all works together.
So what were some of those lessons that you learned?
Yeah, so at a high level, the most important one that I learned is that you've got to touch business development every day. And I don't mean you like literally have to do something that's business development related every day, but you've got to have processes and systems that you are working that are actually continually filling your pipeline. Because if you are like most folks who get into business and you land a new client and then you put your head down and you focus on doing the work for that client, and then you look up when that job is done or that engagement is done or that, the deal is done, you're like, wait, there's no more clients. I've got to go back out and start the hustle again. You kind of ride that roller coaster. So that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned that was such a foundational piece to how I started my second business, which of course then led me to figure out how to generate referrals without asking for them, which made a total shift in my business to actually just teach that to people once I figured that out. But some of the lessons that I learned is really protecting your mindset, and what other people think doesn't really matter. And then, of course, paying attention to scaling is really hard when your business is drowning. So paying attention to it, at other times versus the thinking it's going to be the thing that saves you is really smart business too. So all of those lessons I took into my second business. And now here we are almost a decade later. And it's really cool about what I get to do because because I paid attention to scaling, I have a different model than I had originally. And, we help business owners, and we're, I think, in 11 or 12 different countries all around the world. So we really, the way that my business is structured now is so totally different. There's so many things different about it. But those were probably the three biggest lessons that I walked away from. I've learned other ones throughout the last decade, but those are the ones I took with me from that business failure.
And what it sounds like is you thought through your business, which is something most business owners don't do. They just get busy doing business. And I don't know which is more hated, sales or looking at your financials.
I think it's equal, right? Isn't it usually equal?
And the problem with sales especially is I think a lot of times people will spend an inordinate amount of money on marketing and advertising. And so when I hear, hey, I can get business referrals without asking, that to me sounds highly profitable. And so that's what we want to learn about. How do we do this because we need to be more resourceful. We don't need to spend more money at every turn. And I think that was a big lesson for me in business. How do I build my marketing without spending a fortune? Because I can't tell you how many different opportunities I had.
I like the air quotes.
Very expensive way to build my business. And somebody said, if you do that, you will always be stuck paying. So figure out how to do it without. And so we'll talk about that more. Before we do that, though, you are a fan of Profit First. How did you learn about Profit First?
Yes. So I used to, before I transitioned my business into just teaching people my referral strategies, when I started my second business, I was actually a certified productivity and business coach. And I had learned a really hard lesson with my first business, the one that failed, because I remember one year my CPA was like, you're not even going to get the tax credits because you didn't make a profit. So there's no tax credits for you. It was like, and I'm sure that's not exactly what he said. That's just what I remember hearing is I don't qualify for the tax credits because my business sucks. Pardon my French. And I was like, okay, great. So there were a lot of lessons, of course, to be learned with that business. So when I started my second business, there was a part of me wanting to make sure that it was successful. And I really did focus on what I'm good at, which is that sales piece of it. And then that became where I learned how to generate all those referrals. And as my business started to grow really quickly, I got 112 referrals that I didn't ask for in my first year when I was certified, my first year as a business and productivity coach. One of my clients then said to me, you really probably need to check out Profit First. And I was like, oh, that sounds like numbers. And I don't like numbers. And I don't like public math. And I'm like, we'll see. We'll see how I go. And so, for the first couple of years, I was like everybody else. It was like, and it's exactly what Mike talks about in his book. I was like everybody else. And it was just like, here's how much money I bring in. Here's how much money I decide to spend. And then how much money do I have at the end of the year? And then frantically email the CPA, how much of that should I spend to lower my tax rate? That's just, let's be honest, a stupid way to run our business, but we all do it. And I had a client who said, you really should check out Profit First. And I'm a reader. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. it did take, I'm embarrassed to say, more than a year or so to get around to reading it. And then when I read it, I was hooked. And I actually ended up implementing it a couple of years ago. I wish I had implemented it many, many more years before that. But I did implement it before COVID happened. So in 2019. And I will tell you, it was, people ask me all the time, they're like, what are some things that I need to put into place in my business? And I'm always like, my referral strategy and profit first, because I feel like I ended 2020 in a place that most business owners that I talk to didn't have an opportunity to feel. It's funny because the way I describe it to my husband is like, I'm just sitting on loads of cash. Right. Like, and I don't mean to say that like facetiously of like, oh, look at me, like, but literally profit first forces you, if you follow it, right, to take the profit first. So you end the year, right, with like a very healthy, successful business that you can then, spend or reinvest in your business to do some different things to up-level your business. And the things that I've been able to do because of implementing profit first, it's crazy. I was able to like easily take my mom on a 7-day European river cruise for her 75th birthday, something that I would have like probably put on a credit card in the past. And now I'm like, yep, got it. I've been saving for that. I know exactly where that's coming from because I see my business differently. It's so much healthier when you pay attention to your numbers in this way. And there is nothing wrong with putting your business on an expense diet. Like just all good things will come out of putting your business on an expense diet. And doing that was huge. And so, I never ran my business into the red for the most part. Well, my first business, but not this business. And so it had always been done well. It had always been healthy. There had always been profit, but now the intentionality around that profit, it's so fun. Like people ask me all the time, not like all the time, but they're like, oh, like trying to figure out like, what's your revenue? I'm like, who cares what my revenue is? I was like, I bet I have more profit than you at the end of the year because of how I run my business. And that is such a more powerful metric in my world. Bottom
line is far more important than the top line vanity, because I can't tell you how many times I see business owners with 7 figures of revenue and nothing to show for it. It's all gone. And that is the reality of many businesses.
When I was a business coach, I can't tell you how many $1 million business owners I coached that were making 48 grand. Like, it's just like, what's the point of having $1 million business if you're not even making 50 grand a year? And then you're reliant on the profit that you hope you've prepared for to actually be able to pay you more by the end of the year. And yes, I could not agree with you more. I think seeing that and then reading the book Profit First, and then I was lucky enough to be on, Mike's podcast as well a couple of years ago, and just kind of always just been a follower of that messaging and teaching telling other people about it. I just think it makes such a difference. So
it does. And as you said, the expense diet works. We do tend to spend too much in our personal lives and in our business lives. And just because it's a tax deduction doesn't mean it's a wise choice. and that's the reality. I was just listening to Mike had a program last week, and he said when he sold that first business, he said it was never profitable. And I didn't realize that. He goes, for me, selling was where I made my profit. And that was the first time that he actually was profitable. I'm like, wow, that's just not the way it should be. We should always be profitable.
But everybody talks about the vanity metrics, right? It's like, oh, are you $500,000 yet? Oh, are you $1 million yet? Oh, are you 8 figures yet? Like, if the business is spending as much as it's making, what's the point? I think that the ability to be able to pay yourself really well and have profit, and your team if you have a team, and then to be able to have profit at the end of the day, like, that's what matters most in terms of what you should be striving for. And it's not what we talk about, because to your point, it's not the vanity metric.
No, too often we talk about vanity, and that's a shame. Well, I'm glad. So let's talk about your book. It's called Generating Business Referrals Without Asking. I want to know, how do we do this? Because I would like to, for my clients as well as for me, it's one of those parts of the business that we don't always love.
You're right. And you said something earlier about referrals and the fact that we can spend a ton of money on sales and marketing tactics, advertising, things like that. And the thing I love most about referrals is that it's really based on relationships. Now, I'm going to boil it down to make it sound really simple, but there are obviously some facets to it you have to get right for it to work for you. But referrals are really all about relationships. And you know what's really cool about relationships and referrals is they're evergreen. So they work in a good economy, they work in a down economy, they work during a global pandemic, and they work when you're not in a global pandemic. They work. But when they don't work? When you're not doing anything specifically to cultivate those referring relationships. And so I always get a little chuckle. I used to get upset. Now I just kind of chuckle when someone's like, well, business is really good right now. I don't think I need to worry about that. And I'm always like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. Because what I can't guarantee you is that you start working on your referrals today and you'll have some by Friday. It doesn't work that way. This is a long-term game that you need to be playing. Now, when you're following my strategies, my goal is to get you to be successful in that first year and then you to build sustainability. But the truth is, I watch some of my business owners, like I've got Catherine, who's an attorney. And she, I'm watching her come into my working with me. And she was like, I think it was about a dozen referrals a year. Maybe I think that's what it was. I think she got on average 2 or 3, maybe 4 a quarter, 12 referrals. 4 years later, and I watched her grow to 40 referrals, 60 referrals. 4 years later, last year in 2021, she received 82 referrals. Her business in those 4 years has completely transformed in terms of where clients are coming from, what she's worried about, and the type of clients that she works with. And it's because she started something 4 years ago. And yes, she had success in her first year and her second and her third, but we're really getting to see all of that compound itself in her 4th year and beyond. And I can't wait to see what she does this year in 2022. And I think that that's the piece people forget about referrals. The other piece is that what you've been taught about referrals probably has made you not want to focus on referrals. You've probably been taught that you have to ask, or you have to incentivize or compensate, or you have to network to know a ton of people. You always got to be seen, or you got to be really overly promotional and gimmicky if you want to actually get referrals. Or if you don't want to do any of those things, well, just hope you get some. Just hope people like you enough and they'll give you some referrals. And what I have found by looking at the psychology and sociology and behavioral economics and even the brain science behind how and why referrals happen, I'm like, you don't need to do any of those things. You do need to figure out who your referral sources are or who you want them to be. You've got to identify them. But then you actually have to build a strategy that you can really dig in and cultivate those relationships. And not daily or weekly or monthly, but just making sure you're staying top of mind and you're being memorable and meaningful and using that right language, what we call referral seeds, to be able to generate those referrals. Most of the time when people think about referrals, they're like, oh, if you're going to teach me how to ask, I'd rather not bother because that's terrible. I'm like, it is terrible. And you should never do it. It's actually hurting your chances to get referrals in the future. But, it takes a while for people to recognize that, wait, for generations I've been taught, I've got to ask. And now I can think about it differently. Sometimes it takes a little time to do that shift in their mind before they're really like, okay, what does this look like for me?
So let's talk about the who first.
Okay.
Because I think that's important. Too often we don't think about who is a good referral source, right? Mm-hmm. Is it the appropriate person? And do they even have in their network the people that you want referred to you?
I'm so thankful you said who first, because that's what I always say. Everyone's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I say? What do I say? And I'm like, great questions. Not the first question. The first question is the who. And we actually teach 3 foundational referral strategies that I tell business owners, if you have 1 or 2, or maybe all 3 of these, depending on your business, you're going to generate referrals. Are there other things you can do that we call situational referral strategies that layer on top of those foundational 3? Of course, but these 3 are the most important. And the first one is actually existing referral sources. If you can identify people who've referred you before, that's actually your low-hanging fruit. To be able to generate more referrals in the future is to get those folks who've referred you before to continue to refer you and maybe refer you more. But to your point, Rocky, it starts with who. Who are the people? Do you actually, and not what you think you remember, and not what you think you remember from 3 days ago, but looking back in your data and really figuring out where your clients are coming from and who are their referral sources. And then to the second thing there is that then helps you identify, well, who are the potential referral sources, those that I want to refer me. That still starts with who. Who am I going to identify that I want to refer me? And then paying attention to the how will I cultivate them and what will I say. So I think I'm so glad you started there, because who is most important. Who drives the what, the how, the why, the what you'll say, all the tactic and all the tactical things I teach always are driven by who are your existing referral sources and who do you want referring you, your potential referral sources. It's such an important place to start. And I'm not surprised, because I've been seeing it now for almost a decade. But a lot of people, I think, are surprised when they actually look in their business and they pull out that data of whose name is actually on the list and who they thought would be on the list that isn't.
Well, and so I do keep track of that. For every single client, I note next to them how they came to me. Mm-hmm. And good. So I know I can go back and look, okay, I get clients from here and here and through this strategy, and what am I doing? And that's been one of my biggest struggles is it's like, oh, can I turn off the marketing machine? and it's like, no, you really can't, because you don't know when clients are going to come and go. And if you turn it off, I know how long it took the first time to get it rolling. So it's just like, you know what? We're just going to keep it. It's a lot easier to turn away clients. It's a lot easier to refer them to someone else. And when you have that much demand, you get pricing power.
Yes.
And so we've just let it run. And we don't get crazy, but we also keep it going.
Yeah. I like that you kind of think about it from the marketing machine. I call it the sales machine, because I think sales is made up of marketing and prospecting. And then I think there's a leg to that stool under sales, which is the referral strategy, because I do believe that referrals have to be treated differently than your prospecting activities or your marketing activities. They deserve their own leg of the stool under the sales umbrella. But I like how you talked about like turning it off or turning it on, because that's the same thing I tell, my clients when they start. Like, sometimes I'll have folks that I start working with and they're like, we're worried about what happens when we hit our goal. Because I make everybody who works with me set a goal of like, here's where you are. Here's your average of referrals you receive in a year. Now here's where we want to go. And then of course, I'm going to give you the strategies to get there. And they're like, we're concerned about our capacity when we get to the goal number. I'm like, we're going to worry about that when we get there, because right now I need you doing the work. But what they don't know that I know is exactly what you said. That's going to give them so much freedom in their business. They can raise their rates. They can change how they offer their services. They can do different things. Like, there's just power in that I think is really important. But you have to start somewhere, and you have to recognize where your business comes from. And I also don't believe your business can only come from referrals. I think that's crazy. I mean, I know there's people that are like, oh, I'm 100% by referrals. And I know if I dig into their data, that is not true. Like, fundamentally, that is not true, because more than likely they do get clients from other places. But I think it's smart to have a couple of ways that you bring in clients, and that you're consistently looking at those ways and how you optimize them. I just want referrals to be the biggest piece of that pie and the biggest mechanism, right, within the machine that's actually generating clients for you. Because what I know is that if you're generating by referrals, and then maybe let's just say you're generating by Facebook ads, and then maybe you're generating by having a book out, right? What I know is that you don't control necessarily how much play your book's going to get on Amazon. You certainly don't control when Facebook changes the algorithm. So if those things are working, work them. But I know that even if those two things change and they take a hit, your referral piece can keep chugging along, because that's not based on any other platform that is owned by someone else. That's based by you, your business, and your business relationships.
So everyone's dying to know, how do we get people to refer someone to us without us asking?
Yes. So, here's the thing. Let me tell you what it kind of looks like at a high level, and then we can kind of dig into any specific questions you have, because it's not a silver bullet answer. I am not Staples. I do not own the easy button, and I cannot hit it for you and get you a referral tomorrow. That's just not really how it works. But the strategy, the steps that I teach, if you kind of think about them in 5 steps. So the first step is what we've already talked about. It's identification of your existing referral sources. And then if you don't have enough referral sources to start with, then we'll look at potential referral sources. But I start every business with the existing referral sources because I know that's your low-hanging fruit. I know if you average 10 referrals a year, I have a pretty good chance of looking at that, depending on how many referral sources you have, and getting you to double it without having to do any other strategies. Just taking care of those referral sources that give you 10 a year, I can probably get you to 20, usually doubling it, tripling it from that place. So it's a low-hanging fruit. It's where I like to start. I like fast wins, just like everybody else. So we're going to first identify who your referral sources are. So let's say, for sake of argument, we're focusing on the steps to take existing referral sources and get referrals from them. We're not asking for them and not leaving it to chance. We're first going to identify who they are. Then we're going to make sure that we have created a strategy, what we call the referral plan, where we're actually going to do outreach. We call it touch points, about somewhere between 4 and 8 times a year throughout the year. That's going to allow us to be memorable and meaningful, top of mind. And in that, what I don't mean is your newsletter. We're not talking, yes, have a newsletter. It's marketing. Do it. It is not part of referrals. It won't count as one of your touch points. What we're talking about is impacting how your referral sources feel about you because you are taking care of them and showing gratitude and thankfulness in a different way. I don't mean you're going to send out 5 gifts throughout the year. That's kind of stalkerish, right? I don't mean that you're actually going to have to meet someone for coffee every other month. Like, we don't do the same things. There's a variety of what we do that impacts somebody else. Because here's the thing. If you have identified your referral sources and now you have this plan in place of how this outreach, these touch points you're going to do about 5, 6, 7 times a year, right? You're going to do those throughout the year. You're impacting how they feel about you, which means, of course, they mean the world to you. Of course, you want to take care of them. They make your life easier, and you want them to know you don't take their referrals for granted. Well, when I can impact how you feel about me, that's going to take us to the next step, which means when I can impact how you feel about me, I can then direct how you think about me. And that's our next step, which is the language piece, which really is my secret sauce that I teach my clients, is how we plant referral seeds. How do you talk about referrals or plant referrals within a touch point where it sounds totally normal and not like this veiledly thin attempt to ask? Because we don't go there at all, right? We come from a place of gratitude and thankfulness, but yet there is a way to weave in that referral language. And that's our next step. Right, so we've identified our referral sources. We're going to be memorable and meaningful, top of mind with our referral plan, and we're going to use the right language woven throughout our touch points. And then we're going to put it into a process or a system. We call it processetized. I recognize that's not a word. That's just what we call it inside with my clients. We're going to systematize this. Some things you can outsource. Some things you can automate. Some things you're going to have to do yourself. But you're going to do things like 5, 6, maybe 7 times a year. And so the reality of it is we just need to make sure you're going to do them, because you cannot generate referrals on a one-hit wonder, right? You cannot generate referrals by taking care of your referral sources once. And then we're going to track the heck out of everything so that we know what's working and what's not, and whether or not we're being successful, obviously, but also where we may need to tweak what we're doing. So identify, build the plan of touch points, use the right language, systematize it so that it actually happens, and then track the heck out of your results. And the results we typically track are number of referrals received, number of new people who start referring you, and then, of course, what's the outcome, right? The people who refer you, do you close them or do you not? Because that can help us know if we need a quality conversation. Are they sending you the right types of referrals? Do you need help with your closing when you have a referred prospect? So we're going to track the outcome. Do they close or not? And then we're going to track the revenue so we actually know what the ROI is.
So can you give me an example? You keep talking about referral language. What would be an example of that?
Yes. Okay. It's probably, besides the, what are my touch points? It's the most asked question that I receive. And I always tell folks, the understanding the language piece, there's actually a chapter on it in my book. So I'm going to give you one example, but if people want a couple of more, they can go grab it. It's kind of towards the back half of the book. I think it's chapter 10, if I remember correctly. But they can learn a little bit more about it. But obviously what we teach is, I'm going to give you one strategy. There are so many different strategies we teach our clients. So this one I'm about to give you, please don't just only use that one over and over and over and over and over again, because then it's like, it doesn't feel genuine anymore, right? When we're always using it. But this one referral seed that we always talk about is how we answer the how's business question, right? So just a really simple one. There's other ones I could teach you, but if you're not following the plan and you haven't identified your referral sources, I could tell you one that would fall on deaf ears because if you're not doing it. But answering the how's business question, we all participate in. whether we're talking to someone at church, whether we're talking to a neighbor, whether we're at a networking event, whether we're talking to a client, whether we're talking to a referral source. The how's it going? What's new? How's business is typically going to be asked. Most of the time, Rocky, how do you answer that question when someone says, how's business? What do you usually say?
Me, I say business is great.
Yeah, right? And you mean it. Like, business is great. There's fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with that answer, right? Most people say that, but it's such a missed opportunity to plant a referral seed, right? So Rocky, do me a favor, for the sake of your audience, let's let them hear us role play this. Ask me how business is doing.
How is business doing?
Thank you, Rocky, so much for asking. I really appreciate it. Actually, business is great. I was just looking back over last month of the new clients that we brought on board, and it's crazy that 80% of them were actually referred to me by other clients, just like you. A very simple answer that actually talks about it from a referral perspective. And at the end of that answer, I would very quickly say, I'm not going to belabor the point, right? It's like I say the statement, and then I'm very quickly going to say, so tell me, how's business going for you? And we're going to continue the dialogue. But the reality of it is, if it's planting a seed with you in any level, you're going to probably ask, like, wow, how do you get so many referrals? Right? It just allows a conversation to begin around referrals. And if not, it does allow me to plan a referral that, wow, 80% of Stacey's business last month came by referral. Like that, right? It's just, we're planting a seed. We're not trying to unleash a referral explosion with this one energy, like this one exchange, right? Like, that is not going to happen, but it is planting a seed. And so it's the idea of where could that take us, or what could that mean down the road? But imagine taking something like that and actually using it with people, and part of how you take care of them that are already referring you. It just starts to prime them for how they think about you. So that's one of the seeds we talk about in the book. It's the how's business. I think it's really important that you figure out your answer to that question. It must be truthful. You can't just use the 80% of clients came by referral. That's not true just because I said it. It's got to be truthful. So you may have to say, like, hey, last year I brought an X number of referrals, or the last quarter, maybe your last month's results weren't great from a referral perspective, but it's got to be true. It's got to be real, right? And then obviously it's not to belabor the point. It's to infuse the conversation of that's what they'll think about you when they walk away. And we're planting a seed. We have no idea if it's going to fall on fertile ground or if it's going to fall on concrete, but we plant the seed regardless. The thing is if you were to ask me how's business tomorrow, I'm not going to give you the same answer. That's when people like overuse it, to use it to the same person over and over again. Like, that's not the point.
And even if you don't have a ton of referrals, you just have to come up with your statement in a correct way to be able to say that. Business is great. We've been growing through referrals, and we've been focused on our referral strategy. So in that case, I'm not boasting about it because it may, for someone who doesn't have it, but it allows you to do that. And the language we use is very important. It's, again, planting seeds. So I know the numbers of planting seeds, at least in many parts of businesses. I have always found you have to plant a lot of seeds to grow a forest. And I think too often people go, well, I did it 3 times and no one gave me a referral. This doesn't work.
So here's the one thing I would say. You can say this statement 15,000 times and it may not work, because it's one referral seed and it's part of an overarching strategy of what this looks like to truly develop referrals. If you're using this strategy to walk into a networking event to see if you can get someone to refer you, go ahead and just like bottom out your expectations, because it's one piece of an overarching strategy. Before someone's going to refer you, they're going to have to trust you. Because remember, when someone refers you, it's not about you. They're not actually growing your business. They're actually helping somebody who has a problem, and you're the person who can solve it. So the referral is actually never about you. So when you think about it that way, right, this is about you having a relationship with someone, because there's 2 things that have to happen for a referral to happen: desire and opportunity. And you only control desire. And that means you're the person I refer to when somebody has a question regarding Profit First, right? You're the person I think to. There's lots of Profit First certified consultants, but why do I choose you, right? Why does somebody choose me over any of my competitors, right? That desire to refer you, that's what you can nurture. That's what you can maintain by having a referral plan and using the right language and focused on the relationship and not taking advantage of it. Opportunity, though, That's when we want to pick the right people because we don't actually know how often they will come across opportunities to refer us. Past results will show us one thing, but if it's a brand new person you've met and you're like, I would love for them to refer me because they're so well connected, that is a nurturing process. Those are steps I would have you take that would never just happen with one how's business answer. So you're absolutely right. Like I said, I'm not Staples. There is no easy button. This is not a get, quick, rich scheme here. This is you taking care of people because it's the right thing to do, but also knowing it's going to come back around to you as well.
And it takes time and it takes work and you just have to keep going. That's the biggest thing that I've kind of learned is you just keep showing up, you keep trying different things. And again, you never know who is fertile ground and who is not. And so don't take it personally. It's not you, it's them. Let go of it and keep showing up. You have a ton of resources available on your website. Some of them are free. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is always a great place to start. But if you're looking for something kind of like, hey, I'd like to kind of know where I am right now in my journey, my ability to generate referrals in this way that we're talking about, I would actually recommend your listeners take our Referral Ninja quiz. We just use the Ninja to kind of make it a little fun. You'll take the Referral Ninja quiz in 9 questions, right? Which is going to be based on your mindset and your actual results. It's going to be able to tell you what level of a Referral Ninja you are currently at. And then, of course, it'll show you how to close the gap to get you to the top level, which is a Referral Ninja Master, which is obviously where I want everyone to be. But that Referral Ninja quiz, it's just referralquiz.com. It's really simple. I think you may have taken it. It's 9 questions. It's not too complicated. But it helps you understand where you are and then how do you close the gap if you want to close the gap. It'll kind of give you that roadmap of what you need to do.
Cool. And I encourage people to check it out if this is an area you want to focus on. I just know from a profitability standpoint, building a marketing machine that just takes a little bit of time and not a lot of money is one way that you can grow your bottom line and be more profitable.
Yep. I always tell folks, we prefer shoestring budgets when we're taking care of relationships, not the really, really fat kind of budgets. They're just not necessary.
So true. And once again, just let everyone know where they can find you.
Yep. StaceyBrownRandall.com. And Stacey has an E.
And I'll put that in the show notes to make it easy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
I love free marketing that provides clients on my calendar. What about you? Stacey shared some great ways to build a referral network that doesn't require a lot of time, isn't full of constant noise, and that you can do with minimal effort. Of course, having a good system in place to track your activities and a system to ensure it gets done is important. Remember, your business is a system and people run the systems, including you. That is why Profit First is also so successful. It's because it's a financial system for your business that's easy to use. And as Stacey said, leaves you with stacks of cash at the end of the year.
If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your chief profitability officers. You have your own area of expertise, and maybe you want to spend more of your time doing what you love. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
Hey, it's Rocky. Don't forget to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about life beyond money and how to live that ultimate life and become a better leader in your company. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.